Hey there, writers and muse daters. On today's very special Insider episode, we're talking to Jason Bock, who is a recent graduate of the Writing Gym VIP program. How are you doing tonight, Jason?
Rixey, personal trainer at the Writing Gym.
Hey there, writers and muse daters.
So, Jason, I'm going to jump right in
is a very
with these hard
alumni podcast with Jason Bock. We get the inside
Why don't you
scoop
tell me
about
a little
his
bit
experience
about
in the
what
writing
you're
gym
currently
and the
working
changes
on.
it has made in his mindset,
I'm working on
his
a novel
writing,
called
and
Spell
his
Song.
future.
It's a fantasy novel about a dark elf who runs afoul of her family and is kicked out, primarily because she's trying to study magic, and the women in her family are supposed to only study to be priestesses. And so she gets kicked out of the house. It's a very bad experience for her. She's left damaged by it. Her hands are damaged, and she's unable to work magic after that. And so from that point on, she's having to make her way in the world, and she's trying to figure things out, and she kind of discovers that she has another ability around magic, and she starts to use this to both make her way in the world, but also with this underlying idea of eventually confronting her family and seeking revenge.
Ooh. For those of you who are frequent listeners of the podcast or frequent our Right to Publish group over in Facebook, you know that I am Jason's target audience with this book, since science fiction fantasy is my jam. So I'm very excited to finally read it once Jason gets it published, as he will when he finishes the mastermind program, which he is starting in a couple of weeks. But before we jump into that, Jason is a graduate of our VIP program, listeners. So he just finished that a couple of weeks ago. Jason, why don't you share with us a little bit about your writing life before you entered the Writing Gym VIP program?
It was very sporadic. It was very inconsistent. I had a lot of trouble sticking with an individual story, and always would start to write one and then get another idea and start to write that one instead, or just take, very long breaks from writing when I didn't feel like I had anything to really worth saying. And then, but always with these stories running around in my head that just I could not ever really shut off. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Did you try any other programs or books or anything else to try to spur your creativity and get you to finish a project?
I read a few books on writing. I never tried a program before, but I read Stephen King's on writing. I read another book about writing fantasy novels, and I found that they were helpful in some regards, but they didn't necessarily give me enough motivation to really do it.
So you were lacking the motivation and kind of the accountability portion that's part of the Writing Gym.
Definitely the accountability. That was the big thing for me in the Writing Gym.
So what led you to the Writing Gym? How did you find it?
I met Annalisa kind of randomly. My fiance and I went to a boot camp, a business mastery boot camp, and Annalisa happened to be there, and we just kind of wound up sitting next to her and talking about what it was that she did. And the more I heard, the more interested I was. And my fiance is actually the one who really encouraged me to try the program and see what I could get out of it.
That's so interesting, isn't it? The universe works in mysterious ways, kind of puts you in the right place at the right time to find the right people.
That I think it does.
So you said the accountability portion was really big for you in the Writing Gym. Why did that help you?
I think it was something about knowing that I was going to be meeting with you and Annalisa every week, 2, maybe even 3 times a week, to talk about writing, to talk about what I was writing, what I was doing, and wanting to have something to report each time, wanting to be able to show some progress each time, and then using those lessons to kind of start carving out my writing time and working with my schedule and my fiance's schedule to find the right times for me to actually sit down and write. The salons were great because you could get on there and just write about almost anything. Whatever the prompt was, you just kind of ran with it and did whatever you wanted to do. But for me, it was more the personal training sessions and then the one-on-ones with Annalisa those were what really kind of kept me motivated and kept me trying to write whenever I could, every day if I could.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously I'm a little bit biased considering I'm the personal trainer in the writing gym. But I think that that accountability portion of it makes such a big difference. And not, you know, like you said, you figured out the best writing schedule for yourself. You figured out how to make yourself creatively productive and not to, you know, there's no way in this program where we say, you know, if you don't write 500 words a week, you're out.
No, nothing like that.
You know, we help you to kind of find the writer that's already there. You know, that author was already in you. They just needed a way to figure out how to be fully realized, which was exciting for me to have you come into weekly sessions and say, you know, I had a great few hours this week and I managed to get like 2,500 words in one session. And, you know, I'm nearly finished. And, you know, having those moments of people really having those big breakthroughs are my personal favorite part of the writing gym. But I think that is something that, you know, Annalisa has worked hard to create that part of the program because, you know, so many other programs have a very rigid idea of exactly what you have to do. And you do this and this and this on this week and you get this done. And it's very precise. Whereas, you know, we kind of say, well, what kind of writer are you? How can we help support you? What did you discover about the kind of writer you are during the program?
I'm definitely a pantser, is what we say in the program, as I understand it, because that's Annalisa's book, is Storytelling Pantsers, and it's writing by the seat of your pants. You know, I sit down, I don't necessarily have a clear outline, I don't even necessarily know what it is I'm going to be writing about. I try and pick up where I left off and just let the words flow from there whenever I can. And yeah, you have a few times where nothing's coming and you're just getting maybe even a little frustrated with it, but almost every week there would be at least one time when I sat down to write where everything just came out so easily and so naturally that it kept me coming back for more. It was almost having an addiction at that point.
Well, and you also discovered that you actually benefited from scheduling your writing time, which, you know, as a pantser, you are very, you know, creatively open and sort of, you know, the definition of a pantser, flying by the seat of your pants and just kind of figuring it out and writing when you felt inspired.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, the accountability sessions, you know, those personal training sessions once a week kind of made you go, oh, I gotta get things done. Mm-hmm. So you actually ended up scheduling your writing time. What was that like for you?
For me, it was really interesting because, and it's something that I think is true in other areas as well, but for me at least, being a writer is about being creative, and that feels very loose and very free-flowing, and it's very much not something that you think you can structure. And yet I know for myself now that if I don't have a set time to at least sit down and try to write, then I may not write that day or the next day or the day after that. And then 3, 4, 5 days go by and suddenly you're not writing anything. So for me, it's kind of trying to find this balance that works for me of both structure and creativity. So I guess structure and chaos is almost maybe the way to look at it.
That is a good way to look at it. And it's interesting that you had this other idea of the kind of writer you were, mm-hmm. and how much that idea of yourself as an author, as you move through the program, changes, mm-hmm. as you start to really imagine yourself and realize yourself living that author lifestyle, you know, getting to that dream of having a published book. Because I feel like authors start out in the program and they're kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. I write at this time, or I might do this, or I'm not, you know, they slowly figure it out. And by the end of the program, they're saying, just like you know, oh, well, I schedule time at this time. I work best at this time. You know, my editing time works here. And it's all so interesting to see how moving through a program like the writing gym makes you fully become that author that's already inside you.
Definitely, I agree. It's discovering that I needed a little bit of structure to keep me going and keep me sitting down and keep me writing.
So besides the accountability portion, what did the writing gym program give to you that finally got the results that you were looking for?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. The modules I thought were really helpful. For me in particular, the plotting module, I felt like I learned the most from that particular module, and it's a very dense module. There's a lot of information in it. And so it was things about the story structure and understanding that your your plot arc isn't necessarily just the plot arc for your novel, but you have smaller plot arcs. You have plot arcs for each of your characters. You have plot arcs for each chapter. You have plot arcs for each storyline where you have that the rise, the climax, the resolution at the end. That I thought was really helpful to me, and it really started to shape the way that I was writing afterwards, particularly the idea that every chapter should end with a cliffhanger. And I kind of found myself moving towards those cliffhangers and trying to create those cliffhangers whenever I felt like a particular scene was drawing to a close. The other thing that really helped me and I think was really beneficial to me was the Facebook community and going on there and posting my celebrations and then getting that positive feedback. And even if it was just likes and hearts and whatever else, that was great. But if people actually commented and were like, "Hey, that's great, way to go," it's a nice little boost that keeps you coming back for more. And you're not writing in a vacuum anymore. You're not necessarily just sitting there without any real encouragement. I mean, yes, your family, your friends try and give you encouragement, but at the same time, they're not writers. And so it feels a little bit better coming from people who are in the same realm as I am, who are also trying to write their novels, whatever it may be about.
Yeah, I definitely support everything you just said. The writing community that we built, and for our listeners, we have several writing groups on Facebook. We have a large group called Write to Publish and Sell Your Novel. And that group has over 2,000 members. And for that group, there's a questionnaire when you want to enter the group, and it's a very active writing community. What Annalisa has found through her study of neuroscience is that there tends to be a very tumultuous relationship between writers and their creativity. They have the struggling author, the starving artist, you have to be dark and brooding and terrible to be a good writer, to be a good artist, to have any kind of creativity. And, while that's a very interesting trope, it doesn't have to be true. And it's actually really wonderful to have a very positive and uplifting relationship with your creativity so that when you're sitting down to work on your novel, you're not feeling this darkness and this sadness, like you have to be in a moody atmosphere and, turn the lights down low and, do all this extra stuff so that with every tiny little thing they do, and Jay can tell you, sometimes a celebration is like, I took a nap today because I was tired and I wrote a lot yesterday, so I took some time for self-care. And other times, celebrations are like Jay's, where he says, I wrote 2,500 words in a few hours today because I was really feeling inspired. But no matter how large or small the celebration, we have them posted in that Facebook group. And, there are likes, there are comments, there's everything else that just helps to build that positive link between your brain and your creativity, which makes such a difference, because rather than sitting down to work and being like, oh, I don't feel very good about this, I'm not doing very well, and having that negative relationship, people are sitting down being like, oh, I can't wait to work on this, and then later I'm going to post about it and it's going to be great. And it creates that little link that makes such a big difference for a lot of the authors in our program.
Definitely. I agree. I went on there and sometimes just saying, hey, you know what? I had a rough week. I didn't get a lot of writing done. I was lacking in motivation, or I had this going on, or I had that going on. And the encouragement that people would give you is awesome, because almost every single one of them on there has run into the same thing. It's a very easily kind of give you a little boost and say, hey, you know what, that's fine. It's not a failure that you had a bad week. It's just a bad week as long as you get back to it.
Yeah. And having that kind of community where you can go in and, vent if you're having a bad day and celebrate when you're having, a good day, and everything in between gives you, a feeling of belonging and a feeling of positivity that makes a huge difference in your creativity and I'm sure, the work that you get done. Because if you're feeling positive and about something, you're going to get more work done. And if you post and you say, I had a really bad day, or I had a bad week, or whatever, and people are saying, no, that's fine, I've been through the same thing, here are a couple things that helped me get through it. Reading those kind of reactions allows you to go, oh, I can do this too, and other people have done this, so I'm going to push through it, and I'm going to help myself. So I love that. I love that we have such a tight-knit writing community. It makes me really happy to have somebody be positive about that. And the results that you finally got, I know this, Jason, you should tell all of our listeners what happened at the end of your 8-week program.
Well, it wasn't just the 8 weeks. I did the 4-week extension as well.
You did.
So 12 weeks, I guess. But I ended with the first draft that came in right at 400 pages. I was kind of shocked that it ended on exactly page 400. A little over 110,000 words, I think, the last time I looked at it. And just this great feeling of accomplishment. It was so great to reach the end and then actually write those 2 little words at the bottom, the end. It was just this kind of really great moment that I've never had. This is the second story I think I've actually written to completion. And the first one, I did not have that feeling after writing it. I felt actually very depressed after writing that one. But writing this one and getting to the end and actually finishing it and feeling like it is a full first draft, it's difficult to describe. It's just a little bit euphoric.
Yeah, I loved seeing you the last couple of weeks of the program when you were like, I am so close that I can feel it. Mm-hmm. I can feel like just a couple more sessions and my book is done. And that feeling of anticipation and knowing that, Saturday I will have finished my novel.
Yep.
Do you tell people that now? Do you walk across rooms and just be like, I finished my novel? I would.
No, I'm not that outgoing. I told my friends and I told a few family members and that kind of thing. But so far as announcing it to the whole world, not necessarily. But I will say one thing that was interesting about the program is something about doing what I've always wanted to do and what I really love doing. My fiance noticed that I'm just in a much better mood the last 6-8 weeks or so. And so that was a really interesting side effect of the program that I wasn't anticipating either, that I'm just in a better mood lately. But also kind of trying to take some next steps and putting together a Facebook page and putting together a website so that those are up and ready for when this does get published, because I think it will get published one day. So having that out there and then kind of already starting to invite people to like my Facebook page that don't even know that I've been writing. So that's a little scary and interesting.
Well, and it'll be an exciting, scary, new, fun thing. Mm-hmm. And now that, you have the tools, I think that that's one of my favorite things. And I had this conversation with a recent alum a few nights ago, where these are tools that you're going to use throughout the entirety of your writing career. And this is a community that's going to support you mm-hmm. through the entirety of your writing career. Those 2,000 people that are in that Write to Publish group will be the first 2,000 people to purchase your book.
Fingers crossed.
I will be one of the first. I'm sure your fiance will get it first. But I'll be in the top 5. And, those are the people that are going to show up to your book signings and, be there for you to support you. And, that kind of support is just fantastic. And having the tools that the program teaches you, so that the next time you write a book,
Mhm.
the next novel that you write will be that much easier because of, the modules on plotting and pacing. You now know how to do that very easily. So your first draft, next time, it won't take 12 weeks. It'll take 7 or 8 because you've done this before. You're practiced, you're pro. So watching people, come out of the program and, have those really developed skills and move forward and do fabulous things is really exciting. And you're actually moving forward and starting our publishing mastermind program next.
Yes, that is the next step. Still going over the contracts with Annalisa for that, but hopefully we'll be starting that very soon, so I can start learning how to actually edit and revise and turn a first draft into something that people will actually want to read.
And it's such a completely different part of your brain. That's a big thing that we emphasize in the writing gym. There's the VIP program, which is to finish your book. That is the whole point of the program. So you have a finished first draft of your novel at the end of it. And then for the publishing mastermind, it completely switches the gears. And now you're working on editing and revising so that at the end of that program, when you learn how to do, query letters and submissions, you have a perfectly formed, lovely novel that's fully edited and revised.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm a little scared of the process, but I'm looking forward to it as well.
Well, what's the saying that if you're not a little bit scared of it, it's not worth doing?
I've heard that.
It helps to motivate you and push you forward. It's good for you. So my last question here is, what would you tell other writers who ask about why they should work with Annalisa?
Well, if you're like me, you'll get what I got out of it, which is the accountability, the guidance, the direction. You get access to all the modules, which can teach you so much about the craft of writing, as well as the mindset behind being a writer, getting yourself into the right, well, I don't want to say mindset again, but getting yourself into the right headspace of this is how you do it. You sit down and you write, and that's fundamentally what it is. But at the same time, it's so difficult for so many different people, myself included. And so I think if you're like me, you'll get what I got out of it. If you're not like me, I think you'll get something completely different out of it, just based on what I've seen of the other people that are doing the program at the same time that I was. Yeah. It seemed like everybody was taking a little bit something different out of it, or getting something a little bit different out of the meetings, the personal training sessions, the one-on-ones, or the modules. We were each kind of taking away a little bit different keys for us to use as we were working forward. And it didn't matter whether it was a fantasy novel like mine, or a romance novel, or a murder mystery. It was a program, or it is a program, that kind of works across the board and kind of helps you figure out what your style is. Are you an outliner? Are you a pantser? Whatever your particular style is, helping you, one, discover that, but also two, making it work for you. Discovering that you need a little bit of structure with your pantsing.
I love that. I think that's been one of my favorite things about this program from the start. I feel like I've been involved in so many writing classes and courses that try to make me something I'm not. And I love that Annalisa never does that. She says, what kind of writer are you, and how can we help you? How can we support you? How can we make sure that you get everything that you need out of this program? And then we just do it. So it's why I love the writing gym. And I like that it's why you love the writing gym too.
I think if somebody tried to force me into being an outline style writer, I would be so miserable that I would never want to do it again.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's often where writers are when they finally find the program, is that, they've been slamming their head against a wall for, 10, 15 years saying, I don't understand why I can't get this done. And it's just because you've gotten some wrong direction. Instead of having somebody work with you, you're having people work against you to fit you into a mold that they've made, rather than saying, what kind of writer are you? And let's make that work.
If you like what you've heard and are interested to see if you're the right fit for the writing gym, here's what to do next. Head to www.datewiththemuse.com/publish now and book an appointment to speak with our team. Here's how it works. We'll get on the phone for about 45 minutes and we'll get crystal clear on 3 things. The best way for you to publish, the best way to achieve your publishing dream, and the exact strategy you should be using to reach your publishing goals. Remember, publishing a book well doesn't happen on its own. You need expert guidance to make it happen. We've helped writers all over the world to finish, publish, and sell their novels well, all while sharing their unique story and making the world a better place along the way. To see if we can help you to do the same, head to www.datewiththemuse.com/publish now. I'm Andy Brixey, personal trainer over in the Writing Gym, and I'm sure that we'll be talking soon. Happy writing! And also, since you've stayed till the very, very end of this episode, I'd love to share with you a little quirk of the week, a little bit of inside information to enjoy. I am the personal trainer over in the Writing Gym, and my favorite genre is fantasy fiction. My favorite book in the genre, currently, which might change if you ask me next week, is Neil Gaiman's American Gods. Happy writing!